If you'd like to talk about your own Bigfoot encounter, or if you're looking for help from a Bigfoot investigator in your area, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. No Sasquatch were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
Hey, this is Kain Michael with House of Enoch.
So how did you end up at this spot of making a little model of your house?
So that's, again, with my site, a lot of stuff, what I've done this year, this summer especially, is just experimenting and making it open to the viewers to just try different things. So basically there's something out in the woods that was left on two different occasions now, in two different locations. The same thing was left, and I can't figure it out. It took me a couple years the last time to figure out one thing. So my idea was to try to use an area where I know there's been prints going through this area, and build a scale model of my house with the tin roof, and just out of sticks and stuff. I built a cabin there, kind of my carport, my fire port, my
you
fire
sitting
pit.
on the back porch.
Yeah. And then using rocks to represent me in it, and just to see if maybe something would go by there and try to, if it would do something with that, then maybe I could relate it to what was left out in the woods.
Okay.
And maybe it would help me figure out what's trying to be conveyed. And to date, nothing's happened out there. Like it's an experiment that I would say so far is a failure, because at least it hasn't done anything that I know of. And I even put, I didn't show the video of it, but I even put stuff that I use, that I recognize, that I think that they do. I have it kind of in the same areas. If you would look at it like from a bird's eye view, I put stuff out there that is kind of what they do, just on a miniature scale. And I don't know if that was a stretch, because we don't know what's their mind, or we're again, you're trying to put human terms on things, and it's what is it thinking? What's it to me? It's left it twice now. The same if you're saying you're doing a question and answer session, it's left me the same answer twice in two different woods, and I can't crack it. I may never crack it. Or it might be something so dumb when I do, I'll be like, holy cow. It was, because you don't know where you're,
just out of curiosity, you said it gave you the same answer.
Yeah, that's probably not a good.
How do you know it's not the question and you're just not answering?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably a bad way of putting it. It's so.
I don't think there's a bad way at this point.
No. So
I mean, you're talking about the things that you're doing and involved with are light years ahead of where the average school of thought is whenever it comes to Bigfoot research.
Yeah, I just try to be open to everything and experiment. I mean, a big part of my summer was I've been using a time-lapse camera, and I've been using different ways of trying to shield my trail cam. Because the thought was, I believe they see it. Or there's something. So I've been playing around with, okay, let's say they're seeing the IR. They're seeing what's the line? Can we modify our camera enough, and how much do we have to modify it to maybe to where it doesn't see the camera or whatever it's seeing? Can we modify it enough to just pass that line where you might get something on camera? Now, I don't put things out in the woods anymore. Like I don't hide my cameras and stuff in the woods. I hide them right here.
Right.
Because I'm like, listen, if you're going to come up close to the house, then whatever I have planted here, that's your own fault. You're on my turf. I don't put it out there. And of course, this is me, just my theory, speculating, but this is where my mind's at. Like, and I also think that, I haven't given up on that. I haven't given up on the trail cam. I think the time lapse camera is you're playing with timing here, because a time lapse is just taking pictures. And what I've done, is total non-flash. I hide the time lapse and I point it towards a natural backdrop that's lit. In this case, my cabin is lit up at night with solar lights or whatever facing the cabin, but it gives you a nice lit backdrop. So all I'm trying to do right now is catch a silhouette going across the driveway, and seeing if we can do something like, if that's a start. I'm still playing with the camera.
Well, you did catch something with it.
I did. Yeah. Finally, I did catch a nice dark silhouette out there. And that again is leaning back to, throughout the course of the summer, there's a guy that's doing documentaries. He's new to doing, he's got great equipment, great guy. He was doing a documentary on Richard. He was, I met him, and that particular day, he was doing footage for Richard. Richard took him out to his place, and I was out there helping Richard do some tracking. And after they got done, they wanted to do some more filming of Richard. I'm not even part of this. And Richard asked me, I got a cabin that's got a nice great room and stuff in it. And he said, do you mind if we do the filming at your place? I don't care at all. And they ended up coming here, setting up, and they were doing, he was filming, doing some stuff for Richard's documentary or whatever. And then after talking, he's like, well, I'd like to interview you too on some stuff. So he was actually doing that with me and Richard and Todd Pulling, who is a wildlife photographer that's kind of teamed up with Richard on his end of things. And they were out on the deck, and they had they come in, they're like, we just saw one go across the driveway. All right, what? So I didn't see it. But when we went out there, it got pretty strange. There's stuff that happened while we were there, and this is all in the moment kind of stuff. And where they see this thing, which they're reporting, this thing's like over 12 feet tall is what they're saying they seen. They hung a string up to where they say the top of his head was, and from their account, it's still up to this day going across to the tree where it was at. But I've got a really nice thermal. I've got night vision. We got all that stuff, and we start filming. We're scouring the woods, and it wasn't till later. Well, we didn't catch anything on thermal, which I was like, how is this happening? But when Todd and Richard came back, they wanted to hang the string to to get a height measurement of what they saw. While they were doing that, Richard looks down. He's like, "Hey, you been walking in the wash of your driveway?" And I'm like, "Oh, hell no. I've never even, it's part of my driveway's got a ditch." And he's like, "Well, you better come take a look at this." And that opened up my whole summer. And it could possibly have been something that's been happening all this time. And I just never looked there. I'm always out in the woods. Well, this whole summer, there's been footprints. There's actually 3 individual footprints that I've got casted now of the same individuals crossing my property at different times. But I was able to cast it. Am I saying 3? Possibly casted 2 of them repeatedly. Eventually, we started seeing 24-inch tracks. These are giant tracks. I have not been able to cast that yet. I've just kind of waiting, but I mean, it's been really interesting seeing this one, the 24-inch. Of course, we're speculating that's Dad.
I think that'd probably be a safe bet.
Yep. And of course, the 16-inch tracks or whatever. I have 3 of those I'm looking at right now. I think it's 3. I believe, that maybe, or at least this is what we're calling it, just for lack of better words, that's Mom. And then there's about a 13-inch track, which we're saying a young juvenile. That's just how we term it, so we can differentiate the tracks. But the 13-inch one is the one that seems to be most interested in me. And just by where I find its prints with the new stuff that's going on with the stump. And I can't help but go back and think, a couple of years ago, I wonder if he had a 9-inch footprint, and now it's up to 13. And it's the same one, and that's why this one seems to be showing some interest. And we don't know. I mean, I don't know if all I know right now is that I could, and what I ended up doing, I ended up putting threads across these places where I was finding the print, so I could document the frequency when something, just a piece of thread going across up about 7 feet in the air. And
so an animal's not going to hit it.
Yep. That's the intent, is that deer and stuff aren't knocking down the threads.
A human's not going to hit it.
Yeah. And, cause that's, I have to reach up to put these in, and then I document when the threads come down. And then I do this every day too, by the way. Since I've done this every single day, I go and I check. And then if one's down, then there's another one down somewhere. And I kind of map that out. And the one closest to the house by my carport is the one that's almost always, if it's down, then there'll be another one at different places. It seems random. The only one that doesn't seem random is by the carport. So the other paths there, and that one seems like Mom. If we're going to just give these tracks a name, it's the mid-size. Yeah. The 24-inch prints, I found them by my pond, walking up to the back of my cabin. And then I just found another one way almost at the edge of my property, is where last time I could see where the 24-inch tracks were coming through. The other ones seem a lot more frequent than that one. I've only seen that one, those prints, twice this summer.
You speculated. I mean, we're calling it speculation. I would take your word for it. That something thumped your bedroom window one night.
Yeah.
That window's pretty high up. Yeah,
that's something that happens. I've even done like online on my site, because I did get recorded one of those really powerful knocks, and people can go listen to that while I'm recording. This happens, and then I open it up to people, like, and people comment like, could it be a chestnut? Could it be? So that's the next kind of step. Me knowing I live here, I know what it sounds like when a nut hits the tin roof of the cabin. I know what it sounds like with a branch, and this is on a whole other level of power. But I've got to keep myself open, and I'll try my best. Like last time, I went around my whole property. I said, okay, here's the only nut that could possibly drop on my cabin, and I took a slingshot, and I shot these nuts way higher than the trees themselves and let them just hit the cabin, and then went back to that night. And even then, it's still, most people, we're in the realm of public opinion, like that still sounds louder. But what it taught me was, now I'm talking about this actual, what I recorded, when I did that, sitting on my deck, reliving the moment that it actually happened, I do not believe anything hit my cabin at all, even though at the time I said it sounded like metal. It just by doing that experiment and hearing the nuts hit my cabin using the slingshot, I'm like, that doesn't sound, the location sounds wrong. It sounds like whatever I experienced that night was, 10 times more intense and louder, but 2, the location sounded like it did not sound as close as what those nuts did. Even at the far side of the cabin, it did not sound, it sounded like it was further back in the woods. Not far, but it just, something there didn't feel right.
And I mean, the only other thing around there is your carport, and that was right there within view, wasn't it? Yeah,
it definitely wasn't. It was the backside of my cabin when it happened. Mm-hmm. But I did document a hardwood tree down by the pond that was snapped in two.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if something, it's snapped into roughly 6-8 feet off the ground. If something really wanted to pull that and break a 4 or 5 inch round hardwood tree, and that crack you might hear, that could be comparative. I put that on the table. And then, there's times where it would sound like just something hits the window. Something does hit, it definitely hits the window. I just, people speculate, be like, well, it could be a bird. It could be, I'm like, yeah, but, you got to keep all that on the table.
Sure.
But at the same time, maybe it's not. And during this time, I remember, me and Eric worked together, go in, I'd be like, man, I swear, it happened early in the morning. One time, I was up in bed. The other time I was on the couch. You would hear a crash outside, and I would bet you $500 I'm going to walk out and there's going to be a tree laying on top of my truck, because it's just that loud. And I would walk out there and there would be absolutely nothing. I mean, quiet, just like whatever did that should be damaged, because it's that loud, and it's not a nut hitting the cabin. It's like, I equated it, when I heard it, I'm like, something like a tree just fell on my damn truck. That's how I'm like, okay, let's see what happens here. And it's nothing. And that happens from time to time. And I am going to, I hope here, my next step is I'm going to introduce more audio, because I think there's a lot going on that I'm probably missing. And that's the other thing. If you're sitting in my cabin, these logs some of them are 20, 24 inches thick. This thing's like a bomb shelter. You don't hear, it's pretty insulated from the outside noise. So, I have to have like a door open or something to even hear someone pull down the driveway. Now, if I'm outside, I can hear someone turn onto my road. But in my cabin, it's insulated pretty well. And so to get that kind of noise, and there's also like, you throw into the mix too, living out here, I know when the nuts drop. I know there's a season for that.
Right.
I know what it sounds like when limbs fall, and that happen. And I don't know how else to explain it, but when something like this happens, and there's been people here to experience this kind of powerful knock, nobody sits there and goes, "Oh, that was a nut that just hit the cabin." Not one person has ever done that. Everybody is kind of got a look of alarm. Like, it's that intense. And
well, I mean, the nut just doesn't hit the roof like that either. It bounces and rolls down the roof and falls off the house.
You hear it, and sometimes it's just stuff out in the woods you hear. I mean, there's been people here that have heard it, and that intensity, no one's never even went to their mind thinking, "Oh, that must have been a big nut." No, people hear that and they look at me like, "Dude, what the hell was that?" Like, it's powerful. I always tell a story. My dad was not a believer at all. As a matter of fact, I think I embarrassed him for a long time. And at my old place, it was right around this time. It was around my birthday, because we were out on my deck. Him and one of my friends were outside, and he got to experience a powerful tree knock. And him and my friend were running in to the cabin, or my old place. They were running in the house when I stopped them, and my dad turned around, he's wild-eyed. He's like, "What was that?" I go, "Dad, it was just a chestnut falling," and he started cussing. He's like, "That wasn't no weapon." I'm like, "Okay, guess what? Welcome to the club."
What else could it have been, Dad?
Yeah,
you tell me.
Just experienced your first tree knock, and from that point on, for the rest of his life, he was so interested in that subject. But he had to experience it. He had to experience that intensity. And that was not even in question that, "Oh, that must have been a nut hitting." No, it's a whole level of intensity. And I do believe, I mean, there are things that happen naturally. The nuts do fall. Trees fall out here naturally. I'm a witness to this. I have thousands of trees. I could be a tree farmer. Like, with the government, I have enough land, enough trees. I could be a tree farmer. I realize that the woods, the trees fall, things happen out in the woods naturally. And then there's a whole other level of things that, just from my own experience from living out here, I'm like, yeah, that's not the norm. When you hear it, I talk about a lot is what's normal out here. And then when what is it, what makes it not normal? You know it when things aren't right.
Well, you have to pay attention to not just the event or the particular object or item, but everything around it as well.
Yeah.
I've noticed that you talk a lot about trace evidence.
Yeah.
And trace evidence is extremely important in this type of research.
Yeah. And there's things that I do that, this summer is just, when you look at the audio that's been documented this summer, you look at the different prints that have been casted this summer. When you look at, well, I don't post it, the stuff that's going on out in the woods, when you put all that together, it's high strangeness. It's definitely
sure.
high. It's high strangeness, and it's kind of we haven't discussed. I also got a handprint too. I think it's a handprint.
Yeah, I saw
that. It's
a
big one.
I think it's a handprint.
Yeah,
I was actually going to say something. People, talk about not finding tracks, but I mean, you've got tracks all over your property all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if people want to see some Bigfoot tracks, they can just watch some of your videos and see them.
Yeah. I don't think people are, one, they're not putting themselves in the right places. And
right.
Two, I mean, because with what me and Eric have done, we'll be the first to tell you, you could hike hundreds and hundreds of acres of woods and not see anything, but more than likely you're not in a corridor that they're using. They do seem to be pretty specific in the areas that they use. I would equate it to maybe like 100-yard stretch out of a 600 acre plot of land. There might be 100 yards that they're using. You got to find that, and then you start seeing the prints. And I think a lot of people stumble across stuff, and obviously we never use hiking trails. I think that's another thing. And I also think you kind of have to get at least a little bit beyond the game trails. I believe game trails are a good place to start because they intersect. I think a lot of their corridor trails, their trackways will intersect, but they're different. They're not the human trails. They're not the game trails. They're their own place that they tend, at least what I've seen, that they're using. It's their own trails. And I just don't think people have, one, I don't think there's a lot of people doing this. I don't think there's a lot of people out hiking vastly off trail for their research. And I think, it's taken a long time just to do what Eric and I have done is just, we've been at it. It's probably going on 12 years now and pretty intense,
Yeah.
And like this year, this summer, once the activity around here started, I have not been deep in the woods here because Eric and I kind of have a theory that we want to check out. And because, I did find a little teeny print.
Yeah,
and
you did.
We were speculating whether it could be a bear print or if it's a little, like a little baby print. We're not sure, but that would make sense if you went that route. That would make sense why they're around. And it's been so frequent. Like it seems like it was abnormally active here this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if there's a nest out there, that's why it's been so frequent this summer. Maybe there was stationed somewhere, and that's kind of what we want to let the activity die down here and then blanket these woods and see if we can't find a nest or something out there. And that's just a theory that we'd like to cross off because from what we're doing, we're looking at it like, with this much activity, these things aren't that far away. And especially the time of day that Eric picked up on, they could, and maybe that's what they do. We don't know. Maybe if they have a baby, maybe it's stays put in an area for a certain length of time before they feel like it's old enough to man. We don't know. I mean, it's all theory, and that's something we really want to do. So I've kind of just stuck really close to my property this whole summer as to not push anything out. I figure I can wait. I can wait for things to die down and then start doing what I normally do and get in a lot deeper. Because the evidence will be there, I think.
You also mentioned that you found some large canine tracks.
Yeah. Some large. Yeah, so I don't even know what to think about that, but
I mean, how large are we talking?
Well, when we met, we go back to Richard wanting someone to protect him while he went in to try. He said there's like these tracks he's seen that have like they're clawed, but they look like they have a human heel. He wants to go down there. So in his area. So we ended up going with him, and we were basically his protection. And he described what we were looking for. And I was actually with Richard at the time, and we were looking, and then Eric kind of went, and he went a different way, and he was looking, and he finally calls Richard. He says, "Hey, you want to check these out? Is this kind of what you're looking for?" And at the time, I would have never even looked at these, because I saw basically 3 holes in the ground and kind of an impression there, but there are several of them. So he's like, "Yeah, that looks like what we're looking for." So he casted them, and he pulls these claws out of the ground that are more like talons. I'm talking way bigger than my fingers. And this one was a 3-toed, or had three toes and partial of the pad. He casted 2 that day. I got one of them. He's got the other one. And these are, I mean, this thing, whatever this thing is, I mean, I can tell you this, it's real. And it's made to tear people apart. But I don't put it in as a canine. I don't know what that is, but I do believe what we casted was of something real. And we went back through, like, okay, turkeys, let's look at those. No, let's look at eagles, eagle talons or something. Does it? They're actually too big for that. These are like massive claws. The only thing that comes close to the print is if you look up, I think it's Tyrannosaurus Rex print, or that type of, like a reptile, is very similar to like what we casted, or a Velociraptor. Maybe that's what it was. But
I mean, that's no more calming than a werewolf.
Right. But then we ended up, throughout all this activity, I've never had anything like that, or even thought of something like that. But I've got 3 casts right now, two different individuals that are clawed, 3 claws. One was a lot smaller than the other, and then there's a bigger one. And that's, again, in this ditch line that I had never looked at. Well, all the years I've been here, I'd never searched, and that's a real honey hole now of where, and not just the ditch line, but going into the woods in these areas. There was 2 sets sitting there, 3 altogether, of these large 3-toed claws, and I don't have an answer for that. All I can tell you right now is that I've got the cast, and I hope it was just passing through.
What's up with that video you posted? I assume it's an interview with Richard, and there's a silhouette of a shadow. Is that just clickbait, man? What is that? Come on.
No, so this is the other thing. Richard has the evidence that this guy has between, he doesn't call them boogers, Bigfoot, he calls it grass man. That's he talks about the grass man. And up until I think it was 2017, he never even looked into the dog man. But this guy has some of the best evidence that's out there. He's got evidence that is better than Todd Standing's. He's got some evidence, pictures of stuff that could be better than the Patty video itself. And now you get into like, it's so hard, like I've told him this. I was like, I have worked so hard on my reputation. I don't want to get involved in some kind of, because it's either real or it's a hoax. It's that good. So what I did is I told him, okay, there's some things here, because he's now at the point he wants to kind of retire from all this. He's kind of, he's at that age. He's got some health problems and he's got some mobility problems. I don't want to talk too much about his service record because I don't want to identify anything, but he's probably not going to be able to go out into woods much longer. And he's kind of preparing himself for that. And he wants to kind of get some of the stuff out there. And, a lot of it, he wants to use my platform and some others because, he's in the past, he's been used, absolutely been used. And then he's also, there's a lot of important people in this community that know exactly who he is, and they have his cast. They've known about him for a long time. And I probably, because he's told them not to say anything, they haven't. He's a honey hole of stuff. But what I told him is like, okay, he's got that was that picture I posted along with the little video. That is a shadow that he captured from inside his sunroom at his place. And I can verify that. I've been in his sunroom. I know the blinds that the shadow was on. And then the next stage is he's got surveillance footage. He's got surveillance footage, two different surveillance footages of a very canine looking thing. You can see the tail. You can see it's the shadow. Like it's the surveillance footage is incredible when you look at it, because you're seeing this thing creeping around his place. He's got it on surveillance, and you can see the ears, you can see its head, you can see the snout, you can see that it's standing, and when it turns, you can see its tail. And at one point, it peeps around the corner of his place, and you can get a pretty good height reference. So I told him with that one, I was like, you know what? I know this is your place. I see your stairs. I see, I can verify this for you. I can verify that shadow that you captured was on your blinds. I can verify this is your surveillance camera. This guy records everything. I mean, he records our phone conversations. I mean, that's just who he is. It's from his career of what he used to do. It's what he does. And he's got audio. He's got audio that will shake a cup off the coffee table when he plays it. These low growls, and he's got a cast. And I've seen the cast. It's a giant canine print. It's different than what I'm talking about with the 3-toe claw. This is a giant canine print that he's got. So the rest of it is, I feel like I can interview him. I get some of his stuff out there as an interviewer and just be able to say, okay, I can verify this, and this. I can't verify the awesome pictures you have. I wasn't there. I can't put my name behind it. But if you would like, if we can do this together, because he says we can get it again. He goes, if you're willing, he's talked to me and Eric both. He's like we can capture this again on camera. And I'm like, well, if we can do that, then I'll back everything that you have. 100%. If we can do this together and document or see one of these things, I will absolutely back you. Right now, where I'm at is, we've become friends. We go out, we research together. He shows me some stuff in the woods to try, and then we get together and we go out into some of his areas, and we're hoping that not only, here's for a little bit of validity for him. First time, we went out with him in this area, we found these clawed prints. He left me a voicemail today, said they found some more at his place, him and Todd, the other guy that they casted So he's like 10 minutes from here, 10, 15 minutes tops. So what he's experienced in his woods is not too far from where I'm at. There's been times we've even like be talking together on the phone, and he'll hear something. He's like, "Hey man, go outside and see if you can hear it from your place, a howl or something." It's never happened yet, but I mean, he's not terribly far to where something like that could happen. And it's just interesting. The guy's got incredible, and that's when the people, local researchers and stuff, when they contacted me, that's what they told me. They're like, this guy has evidence that's off the charts, and he's got all this stuff that he's done his whole life. And someone, you sound like a perfect candidate because you guys are a lot alike. This guy does the things that I do, maybe even a little bit more, like how he documents his stuff, but he does the GPS, he does the wind, temperature, he's got pages of this stuff and he's got a site map, which he's given me, his research map. I have a site map that I do. He's got one that he's been working on for 50 years. He gave it to me. And when we put them together, and obviously I give him mine, wow. Wow, you can start seeing some correlation, like, okay, now this is real interesting, because kind of where I left off is what he has, where he left off is what I have. And it's over at least probably 30 years anyway. I'd give him that of reports and stuff that he's done. And he's the type of guy that'll go get in a ghillie suit and lay in a ditch for 4 days. That's kind of stuff that he does, and that's how he says he's gotten some of his footage, is by using techniques that the United States military told him. He was one of those guys.
Yeah, and
he was trained. He's a trained tracker. I will give him that much. I don't think he would care about me saying that, but he's trained. He's a trained tracker, man tracker, and he uses that and all of his other skills now to, like, that's way more than I've ever done. I've never gillied out and laid out in the wood for 4 days.
I don't mean this in an offensive way at all. Obviously, the gentleman, I do not. In my mind, what I'm sitting here thinking as you're telling me all this, a hoaxer isn't going to have all that data. There's no point. They're not doing that stuff. And a crazy person isn't going to have impressive evidence. They're going to have a bunch of pictures of dark spots in the woods and things like that.
Yeah, his is, like I said, his stuff is, I would put it against any of the research that's out there right now. I just have to be careful, because you never know.
Right.
I've got all of his pictures. He's, and I've Google searched these images. I've looked for,
a source of some kind.
A werewolf. The werewolf movies, all the, even the bee films, and this don't look. I mean, even the picture, you look at it, it would be very hard to say that this is someone in a suit, because it's got physical damage to it.
I mean, you said it's at his house. Like you've seen evidence that he presented where you recognized his property from being there.
Yeah. So the surveillance footage was definitely his house. Yeah, he's got other pictures beyond this that I'm just not ready to put my name out there to verify it. But the surveillance stuff is probably, I mean, for me, it's so impressive, because I know it's his place, and I know he's sitting there filming it, so I know it's not him. The growls are off the charts. The cast he has is a canine. He's got a chunk out of a tree. He's got so much stuff. And just getting to know him and know, like, he's out there by himself, and
how puts a tail on a costume,
yeah,
like,
yeah. And he's got it twice. He got it twice. on the surveillance. He's got the audio. He's got, and he's got stuff. He's got really good pictures of what he calls the grass people. They're not as good, like not quite as good as what the canine stuff is, but he's got really, really impressive some of the Grassman stuff. And he's got not just pictures, he's got video. He's got one. I'll put it to you this way: when me and Eric we were looking at, he showed us this video on the way back. He's like, that's Todd Standings. That's Todd Standings' video. That one that you can see it. Like, there's one that. So we go back and we start looking, and we're like, holy crap, that's not Todd Standings' video. It's completely different. It's totally not his stuff. And again, Richard is a time capsule. He is a guy that went off the grid, and you can tell it even by the way he talks. It's like talking to someone in the, I don't know, maybe 80s, or he's
some Encino Man stuff going on.
He does not watch TV. He doesn't watch the news. He doesn't have cable TV. He doesn't even understand the internet. Like,
what a lucky man.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's so he has no idea. Like, I've brought him here and I've showed him stuff, footage, what people have, and he'll be like, that ain't real. It's like, it's not anything like what they look like or whatever. But he's never seen this. He's very, very in the dark as far as the media or anything, or Facebook. He's not on anything. He's untouchable with that. So he can but he's got all this stuff. And, he's gotten to the age now. He's kind of like, well, what do I do with this? And I told him, I said, well, you're going to have to get some more people to help you verify. It's like, as soon as you post this, you're going to be a hoaxer. It's too good. Like, I know as well as I'm standing here, if I get a great picture of a Sasquatch on my property, as soon as I post it, I become a hoaxer, because that's just how people they view. And I got I had a video of when they had their encounter. And I didn't know. I posted a video like, hey man, last night was kind of crazy. This video went viral. It's got 850,000 views, and 240 some thousand people reacted to it. And I got outside. So, we live in a bubble here. Even, I don't care, this entire community. We might not like each other. We might not agree with what other people think. But essentially, we are protected in this bubble. And when you get something that goes viral like that, you get outside that bubble, there's people that hate you just for believing in it. And I mean, it's hard to deal with. You get 20,000 comments of someone, old ladies telling you you're a dumbass.
Yeah.
And you're like they're not real, and you're an imbecile.
Yeah.
That's they're not even going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, you're just lying. You're on drugs. And it's a barrage. I mean, it was hard for me to take. I've never experienced anything like that. I'm like, all right, well, the rest of the world thinks we're idiots. We're viewed as, no matter how much we research, there's still going to be that element that people are like, yeah, you're.
I mean, I've made this comparison before. I'm like, take whoever you want, Jeff Meldrum, Matt Moneymaker, Bob Gimlin. Matt Moneymaker was on Finding Bigfoot, so maybe that's not a great example anymore. But let's just say Bob Gimlin and put him in the middle of Times Square in New York. Nobody knows who the hell he is. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's going to ask for a picture. Nothing.
Yep, it's we do live in a community, a closed community, and we're shielded. We might get a barrage from other people, but we don't get the assault that's out there. it's going to take absolutely incredible evidence to change those minds. And some of the evidence that he has is that incredible, but I know what is in store for him if he does. And so the more we can try to help verify some of the stuff, or I've already, like, I can verify his history. I know I've seen the medals of valor. I've seen, I know what this guy did for our country.
Not
I
just
know
a
who
story.
he is. No, this guy is not a guy you would ever want to cross. That is for sure. He is a real Rambo. Back in his day, he was something that the enemy would fear. I guarantee you that. And he's got the scars, and he's got the medals to prove it. And and then his tracking ability, is top notch. He picked up on the stuff down my driveway, and I've lived here 4 years and never seen it. And I consider myself a pretty good tracker. And his thought was, hey, you got to go to the last possible place you'd ever think they'd travel. Go there. The last thing, he's like, just think about it. I forget what he made a little rhyme out of it. He's like, said something like, they walk down the driveway and the water washes the tracks away. And like it's on purpose, knowing that the water will run through and wash him out. But now that I'm onto it, I mean, the first time I had a couple casts, and when I showed him my cast before, when I first met him, he's like, that's all you got? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right. He's like, we'll work on that. We'll get you some more. Because you go to his place and he gives them away. He's got so many. He's got boxes of casts that he's done over the years, and extremely impressive. He's got a 24-inch one. I think I posted that one. A giant track. Pretty rare. He's got one not quite as big, but a canine size one. But he is going to let me. He's going to let me. Basically, we're going to do the shadow, the surveillance footage, the growls, and that cast, and then it'll just be kind of me as the interviewer. Letting him, showing what he's got, and then I can kind of go back and verify, like, this is his place. It's a real place. As a matter of fact, the surveillance camera is sitting in my cabin right now. One of them, because he's like, with the stuff going on, this will ring a bell to you probably, because I know the conversations that you've had, but he's like, go old school. Here's an old Sony.
Yeah.
He's gotten a lot of his stuff using that. So during this time, he brought it over. He's like, yeah, just if you think there's something going on, here's how you use it. Press play, and you'll have 4 hours of video on there. So, I know the stuff that he has there. I know that how he does it. Which he has suggested to me, and I'm going to start using. But he basically sets up a listening device that he hears, and when he hears something, he's inside. He hears something because it's being recorded or amplified outside, so he's hearing it. He hits the surveillance camera and starts recording, the audio. And he's there all the time. I mean, he's retired, so he's pretty much there 24/7. And he's been very successful being able to just hearing stuff come in, just automatic. You hit the surveillance because you can always, if nothing's on there, or, and you think of all the years of him doing this. He's only really got a couple things on his surveillance tapes. He's got other things from other times, but it just shows you how hard some of this stuff is to actually, and I'm experiencing that here, obviously, how hard it is to get anything on camera.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about some things. You kind of touched on this earlier. You're out there alone, man. And you're a human, just like anybody else. And even though you have this interest in everything and you've had these experiences, I mean, you say so yourself, you know, the shit gets real. It gets frightening.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you prevent, you know, how do you bottle up and keep those emotions separate from the research side of things whenever stuff's going on?
A lot of it is, some of it you just can't, you know, I'm cool by nature. Like anybody spends any time, my personality, I'm a jokester and stuff, but I'm low key. I'm hard to get excited anyway in life. I'm a guy that's steady, man. Day after day at work, I'm the same guy. Stuff doesn't really bother me. My world could be crashing around me and you would not know it. That has, I think, just personality wise. And then, a lot of it is reasoning and the psychological part. I started doing this the first or second year, maybe that I moved in. I, on purpose, started going out at night here because I'm like, just because it's dark doesn't mean there's monsters all of a sudden. So the way I had to do this to break myself is I'd go out and I would just be hiking far enough out and let it get dark while I was already outside. And then as it got dark, I'd talk to myself. I'd be like, okay, you know, just because I can't see very well doesn't mean, you know, I was just here a half hour ago and I could see fine, and start talking myself through it. And then you're still nervous. I don't care who you are, with a headlamp out there. And if something was to approach me, I don't know what I would have done, but I psychologically build myself up. And then when stuff here, you know, if something hits the cabin, something like we talked about, something hit my bedroom window. One, I do have a lot of guns, but I don't really, I just tell myself, man, I've been out in the woods so much. If something wanted to kill me, I mean, I'm truly more scared of the bobcat cause it's giant. It's a giant cat. Maybe it's a half breed or so. It looks like a mountain lion to me, but it's bigger than a coyote.
Jeez.
And it comes around the house. I'm more scared of that most nights or when I'm out of a cat than I am of this. And then, you know, I will tell, like, and this is not something that just happens. You react. You know, you have a fight or flight that pops up.
Right.
And you react. I fail. Sometimes I fail. I tuck tail and run into the cabin and collect myself, go back out. I will tell you this, the one time that I can really remember clearly stuff was going on and I was freaking out. I sat on my deck in the dark in a chair, and I collected 5 rocks. There's 5 rocks hit my cabin. And I just sat there. I didn't try to film. I didn't try to record. I just sat there. And next thing I hear is something down by my pond swishing around in the water. Like you could hear, it sounded like someone was swimming down there. I didn't try to look. I just thought, okay, we'll see how and I started I really got to a point where I wasn't very scared. I'm like, it's kind of cool. There's something going on. And it's literally, you know, from my deck down to the pond, 30 yards maybe.
Yeah, it's not real far.
No. And the next day I go out there, there's a tree taken from the woods and laying in my pond. I casted 2 footprints. And what was going on is right where all the fish lay their eggs. They're usually big. You can see where they spawn. And I think it was taking that sapling and like wrapping it up like cotton candy, pulling all those eggs out of the side of the pond there. And because I didn't react, because I didn't freak out, I got to hear it. At least it's like business as usual. I just sat there and this is all going on in the dark and I'm just hearing it. And I'm like, man, that's pretty freaking cool. And I think there's other times when I'm outside working or whatever, I'll hear a knock, and a lot of times I'll just wave, and I won't even look up there. I'll just wave. Like, hey, what's up? No, I was on purpose. Obviously I want to look, and but I want things to see me, not react wildly. And that's the same thing when Eric's here and something happens. We don't react. You don't see us running around when Richard's here. We're all that. As a matter of fact, we try to not even pay attention. Like, I heard it. Let's just keep talking. And because a lot of times it'll intensify because it didn't get your attention the first time.
Right.
But I mean, I installed some motion lights. So when I walk out in the mornings for work at 5 a.m, I can hit a motion light and I can see into the woods before I walk off the deck. And that is something that I'm vigilant about. I park my car in certain places. So it's a short trip from, sometimes I go from the back of the cabin out. Sometimes I go in the front. And this summer, with all the stuff going on, I was nervous every morning going out to my truck because it's just, you don't know what to expect. And I have my little ritual that I'll do. That the first thing I do, I get up, I go look into my screening room because I've had something in there before. Then okay, that's good. I look out on my deck. I'm like, okay, it looks clear. Then I go out because I don't leave the lights on, so it's pitch dark. I go out, but I know where that motion light is. So while I'm still on my stairs, I raise up, I hit that motion light, and I look around. Okay, coast is clear, and I hurry up and get in my truck, and I leave. And it's just get used to, get used to that, I guess.
I mean, that's something people have to think about, though, because generally people have the luxury of getting in their car and going home, back to safety, and you don't have that luxury there.
No, and there's been times I've sat there and I'm like, literally thought, okay, if I call 911 right now, I know because I had, as part of my insurance, it's over 45 minutes for emergency services to get here. I pay more on my insurance because of that. So I'm literally out here, even when, I, like right now, I'm on Wi-Fi calling. When I step out of this cabin, I get 20 feet away, you're in a void. There is no cell phone service. There's no Google. There is nothing. And it's not, you can't like call out. So I keep that in mind when I'm hiking because I think about that. I'm like, I get home, I just hit the woods. If something was to happen to me and I got hurt, no one would even know where to begin because it's hard to say where I'm going to be at any given time. So I go out knowing that, like, I'm on my own, and if something happens, I'm going to have to get myself to safety and accept that. Like, if I twist my ankle or break my leg out there, which I've been a few times, but very close to doing, and you just got to think to yourself, like, man, you got to be vigilant. And honestly, I don't know if this is a place a guy would want to be old by himself out here. I don't, because eventually you're going to have one of those accidents. And so I don't know if I'll retire from here. Honestly, it depends on the circumstances, but hopefully I'll have met someone by then and it won't be as bad. But it's definitely something to think about. And it's I've questioned that too. Like, something's hitting the cabin or whatever. I've been freaked out here. And what was it? Because it's the first time in a long. It was this summer. I loaded my 3 of my guns, and they're to this day they're laying on my bed rest, 3 of them, because that night is how uncomfortable I felt. Was like, this ain't no good. This is no good. Because a lot of times I keep my guns in a safe place, and I'm like, this ain't no good, man. If something comes through that door, I'm up here without anything. And I was nervous coming back downstairs, getting some of my weapons, loading them up, and then getting back up to my room for bed. And I did not sleep well that night. But I that's all I could do. I loaded up 3 guns, put them on my headrest. I'm like, okay, now what? Try to get, and so it's all blending together. I was up till, it was after 2 or something. Stuff was going on. I have to get up, work at 5, and I'm like, this sucks. But most of the time, it's not like that at all. It can get freaky out here, but there's another aspect to this. When things are normal, it's as normal can be. There's nothing to be scared of except maybe a cat or a bear. But that's what I mean. You get a sense of that. Like, I can sit out here sometimes. It's the most peaceful place for me and everything. And you can tell. I mean, I can tell anyway. The crickets, the bugs, everything is in harmony. And you know when you're sitting there and you hear that change, the atmosphere changes, and you hear, like, I can tell you when a predator comes onto my property, if you know the harmony of, because all the bugs are talking to each other, all the bugs are listening and the birds listen to that, and there is an alarm system that the animals, the prey uses. And if you get onto that, there's times where something might freak me out a little bit, and I'll just listen and be like, what's everything else out here thinking? And like, it's all right. Everything else is chilling. So, because the animals will warn you, they'll, and I use that a lot. And I think after a while, you get so used to it that I'm not even really listening to that, like, on purpose. I just know what it sounds like for normal here.
I noticed on the video you posted that had the 2 tree knocks or whatever knocks back to back, that there was a bird that was telling everybody that you were in the woods. Yeah. Going nuts. And that, again, that was I was on a trackway with the 24-inch prints. Wow. And I'll tell you something interesting there. I don't know if I ever posted a video, but so this trackway goes right across my driveway. And as you're coming up my driveway, there's a blind turn kind of. And as soon as you hit this blind turn, there's a great big surveillance camera. Hi, you're on camera. And this trackway goes up through a really steep, deep part of, almost like a ravine, comes straight up almost onto the driveway. And you can tell, like, when it crosses driveway, it goes around that camera and then up into the woods. If it just was a straight shot and didn't care about it, it would go right in front of the camera, but it doesn't. It goes right around it. And there's tracks to show that. I've got that documented. I was like, this is video evidence of 24-inch tracks manipulating itself around a surveillance camera. I mean, that one instance where I'm just going to have to agree with your speculation on this one. And I understand people listening. Yes, it is speculation. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It looks like a handprint, and it looks like, I agree with you, something kind of got down and peeked around the tree at your time-lapse camera sitting there.
Yeah, it was that the handprint was just, again, going back to Richard's theory, where this thing came through was the last area I would have went through. And I thought, well, let me check through here. And it was, I kind of kicked myself because I saw it, you know. I didn't know it was a handprint at the time, but I actually reached my hand into this print and my fingers couldn't touch. I'm like, wow, that is deep. Whatever forced its into there. I mean, I can't touch it with my fingers. So, and there was the one that you got a really good thumbprint. I think it's a thumbprint, but when I casted it, I must have made it too thick, so I didn't get the fingers, but the fingers were there, man. I put my hand in there and it just didn't go down in there. So when I pulled it out, you know, obviously I'm not great at casting, or else I probably would have taken some more time. But at the same time too, when I'm doing this, I'm kind of nervous. This is a fresh, wet print. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff been going on, and I'm in a very squirrely area as far as there's no line of sight on anything. It's kind of swampy. I'm down there leaning down trying to get, and it's getting dark. I'm a little nervous doing it.
Yeah, that whole time period where you're waiting for the plaster to dry does take a long time.
Yeah, because I went back in. I covered it. I think covered it up real quick, and then I can't remember if I probably got it the next day. I covered it up.
Yeah.
And then I came the next day and got it. And when I pulled it out, I kind of ruined the track when I did it. Cause you know, when you're casting stuff, you don't realize there could be a root or something. It'll break your cast.
Right.
So when you're pulling up on it, a lot of times you're destroying the print when you're, cause there's roots and stuff that are now in the cast. You got to be so careful. Like I've broken so many casts. Richard's really good. He's been training me basically on being a better cast pour, because I've never done, like, in all the years I've done this, I've only casted a couple casts because I didn't think they were worthy. Yeah. You know, if it didn't have toes and stuff. But now, I mean, this year I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 casts just this year, maybe 12 casts this year, just this summer.
Wow.
And that's just what's opened up for me by discovering kind of how these things are using the driveway on the property. It's totally taken my research, and it's a lot of fun. I like putting stuff out because people get engaged. Like I'm telling them where I'm placed. There's people that message me that know my property. Like they'll reference stuff and they know exactly like, hey, you know where you got that blue thing? You can put it and like they're in this, like, and I love it. I love being able to throw this out there and get the interaction. Cause you know, I also, there's a lot of people that reach out to me and are like, man, you know, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't do, but I love watching it. Like, I feel like I'm with you. And I love that. I always try to make the distinction that this is interactive. This is not ever going to be, this is me experiencing things and experimenting on what I do on this site. The research stuff that I do, I don't share that. It's I kind of keep that to myself. And this is, you can do it. You can be wrong. I've been wrong. As long as you follow through with because that's what investigating is. If you're getting stuff real time, like I am, posting it, you know, as this happens, sometimes it takes a week. Sometimes, you know, everybody can see, kind of go through. And I think people also learn, like, when you are wrong, like, you know what? Hey, we thought we had something and we didn't. But people see that process. They see the honesty. They see that you're just a guy out there trying. to do everything he can to just get some evidence of this stuff. And that's really all I do is try. I'm trying, and I'm, people will flat out say trail cams don't work. Okay. I kind of believe that, but, have we tried every scenario? Have we, like I was talking, can we modify our cameras to where they do work? And is it not worth trying? It's not hurting anything to try, especially like in this scenario. I'm doing it right close to my place. Something's going to have to be really close to my place. Still has the woods to do. It's not affecting its environment out there. It can do whatever it wants. I'll go in after the fact and I'll study that trace evidence. I'm really big on that's another real big part of my research. I don't need to see something. I just want to see what it was doing after it's gone. And I document that. And areas, why is it here? Why does it pick this trail? Why, that's the kind of stuff that I get into in tracking, obviously. And then the other stuff is this, experiencing it, putting it out there, coming up with ideas, what we could do next time. And I have all these wonderful conversations with people all across the country. That'll catch, and we have a lot of back and forth talk. Hey man, have you tried this? Or they'll tell me a story of what they tried. And, in a way, I think it's moving things forward because people are talking about it and people are thinking about it. When they see you try something that gets their juices flowing, like, hey man, I think, I'm going to try this in my place. I'm like, yeah, go for it. One of us will get it right. I don't care who it is. Just one of us can get this right one time and it might open the door. Like, here we go. This is how you do it, folks. And that's where I'm at.
Where can people find your stuff? Mostly right on Facebook, House of Enoch. On Facebook, I do have a YouTube page, which is House of Enoch. You can reach out to me on Kain Michael if you want to hit me up on Facebook and message me that way. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. That's basically it. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I think I was reading earlier, my response rating's like 98%. And it says usually responds within a couple hours. So I'm pretty proud of that. Pretty good.
I talk to a lot of people, and I do try to answer. If someone's posing a question, I try to answer everybody the best way I can. And it averages, probably good 40 conversations a week. Or there's people who have contacted me like, I've never told anybody this story. They'll give me their encounter story, and what do you think was going on? I'll just give them my best opinion. And I've had a lot of people say, man, that really helped. That really, really helps me. I've been holding this in for 20 years. and when, the scenario, this lady I was talking to, she's held this in for 20 years. And when I kind of explained to her, I said, I don't think they were targeting you at all. You got off the trail, and you're probably the first person that's got off the trail, but unbeknownst to you. And, who knows, 10 years. And that was just you walked in on them, shocked them. At the end of the day, you didn't get hurt. They walked away from the situation. You walked away from the situation. You were traumatized by what you saw, but you didn't do anything wrong. And really, they probably thought that they were in a safe place, and you deviated. I was like, they know that trail's there, and people walk that trail, and they literally have to get off that trail to see them. And I said, they probably just got used to that never happening. And she was really appreciative. Like, it took a weight off her chest. Like, it was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Never thought about that. I never thought that they could be that close, or And I feel that. I feel these things exist 100 yards from humanity. That's exactly how I feel. They're fast enough, smart enough, and stealthy enough that they can exist 100 yards from us. And they do.
I think whenever somebody has an encounter like you're talking about that woman, it feels so personal, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really not. It's usually not anything personal at all, but it feels that way to us because it's earth shattering, you know?
Yeah. That's what people do. I mean, I get people praying for me. I get people like scared, and I always tell them, like, listen, we put that on them. And this is how I sleep here at night is we say, oh, wow, that thing slammed that cabin, you know, it's aggressive. Or I'm like, how do we know? We don't know that. I'm still here, you know, even when I was sitting on the deck and that huge knock happens, I didn't get hurt. I was outside. Something could have pulled me right off the deck. Nothing happened. And yes, I was terrified that I had to cool my jets for a little bit there. And I was on camera when it was going on. I had to literally start taking some, because it was so intense personally being here. But then that's why I remind myself, you know, we interpret everything as being aggressive when we don't know that. It might just be getting your attention, like, hey, I'm walking through your backyard, pow.
Yeah.
You know, we freak out, or something tapping my window. Doesn't mean it's trying to eat me. I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know what it's trying to. You want to come out and play? That's what Richard keeps telling me. He's like, you're going to have to go out in the woods and meet these things at some point. And I told him straight up, I said, I'm not there. He's like, you're going to have to get over that fear if you ever want to meet one up close. And I was like, yeah, straight. I don't know if I can do that yet. I've hiked here at night. But knowing if there's something out there, I don't know if I can walk out with nothing to something that's in the, you know, because a lot of times, man, when I hear something, my mind always goes to, first and foremost, a bear or a cat every single time. Is thirdly that I might think, oh, this could be Bigfoot related. I'm on guard over that. Like, I don't want to walk into a bear and a bear cub. I don't want to walk into a cat. I've had a cat stalk me here. So I know, and I did not know it at the time. I went back and I thought it ran off. So I went and got my gun and then went up and started tracking it. And I was like, holy cow, this thing didn't run off. It ran around the tree and started stalking me. So I have that in my brain, first and foremost, always about an animal, a dangerous animal, before one of these. And then usually there's something will happen that'll flip the switch and be like, okay, this is activity. This isn't, what we thought, or it's not a bear and it's not a cat. This is, a tree knock or something will happen. And you'll be like, okay, now I can flip the switch and get into that mode.
Kain Michael, thank you for joining me again. It's been awesome. Just a fountain of information. Man, I've got a lot to think about. I appreciate you, buddy. Always have. And things kick up again, I will definitely let you know and we can talk again. Absolutely. If you have an encounter that you'd like to share with me, give me a shout, bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com, where you can find links to everything, all the social medias, the merchandise, the podcast, everything, one place, bigfootcrossroads.com. And remember, until next time, there's something in the woods.